this is otherwise state champ Alex Thompson. This is Josh Elwer from the University of Northern Iowa, and you're listening to Potentially Dangerous on IA Russell.
Hey, is this heaven?
No, it's Iowa.
From high school to international wrestling, on the mat and beyond, this is the Potentially Dangerous podcast with the guys from IA Russell.
If you're a fighter, you like a fight. If you're an American, you like a fight. If you're an Iowa Hawkeye, you know you're going to get a fight.
Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes and all your podcast-friendly apps. And follow us on social media platforms at IA Russell. Time to strap it up and get to the show. Welcome back to Potentially Dangerous. I'm Tony Hager, joined by always Ross Bartachek. How we doing tonight?
Just took in some big wrestling news today. I'm doing good.
I mean, this is one that we were expecting a little bit. You know, we had that speculation article that Mark Perry was coming to the Hawkeye Wrestling Club, and we kind of felt pretty good about it through some of our contacts, and obviously it ended up dropping today. And you know, I kind of was expecting. I mean, I think maybe the speculation of it and all over the internet a little bit kind of took away a little bit of the buzz, but there's still a lot of buzz. I know in Iowa City. I don't know, maybe around the country yet. I haven't had enough time to really kind of go on forums or look through my tweets. I've been my wife had the day off, so been kind of doing some stuff with her. But I mean, what have you been seeing? I mean, are people happy? Are people mad? What are there Mark Perry fans out there still?
Oh man, I perused a couple boards. I tried to get I went to the Penn State board, see what they were thinking. Because obviously, I think Iowa City's ecstatic, but it was really funny to read. And you know, message boards are just a small segment of any population of fans, but the main thing was they called it a downgrade, or you know, not even a lateral move for Perry. It's a step down. So Penn State fans are already trying to spin it their way, it seems like.
Well, I mean, I guess depends on what the coach's aspirations are, right? Like, I mean, even if he wants to be a Division I coach someday, I mean, it's not like this is stopping that, right? I mean, this is just another coaching gig in my eyes, just not at the Division I level, I guess. I would say it's at a higher level, the senior level. There's not as much red tape, I think, if you're Mark Perry, too, being at the senior level. And he's getting more money. I mean, I guess I don't know the details of it, but I know what Mark Perry was making, and I know what the Hawkeye Wrestling Club is raising. So, I mean, put two and two in order to – I mean, Tom has tried to get Perry back, I think 3 times from what I've been told. And this finally got him to be here. So – I mean, the right time for Perry to come, the right amount of money to come. I mean, everything really makes sense right now to get this done.
When I look at just in terms of the career choice move, this is for Perry stepping up, because a big thing about this move that we didn't talk about when the speculation post came out was with Perry joining the Hawkeye Wrestling Club, he won't be able to corner university athletes. He won't be able to, go out and recruit. Obviously, everyone knows he recruits California pretty good. Where Aymar Delgado, pretty obvious developments for him. He got Mejia out of California, 4-time state champ. He hits that pipeline good. But if he's not a paid employee of the university, you know, he can't go out. Kind of like Dresser told you when with Metcalf. Metcalf's volunteer coach doesn't go out and recruit. That'll be St. John's main job. So I don't really see how this is a step down for Perry, because if he wants a head coaching job, there's not a ton of head coaches to me that go on the road and have to sell their program. They don't put in all the work. They're more of the July 1st show up in your home and I'm going to close the deal.
Yeah, and I think as far as recruiting goes, you know, how much more recruiting can happen when Mark is in that room? You got to know that there's stuff happening, obviously, behind closed doors that, NCAA, we don't know if this is happening in the Iowa room, but in lots of programs, there's ways around things. There's ways that Mark Perry can get his hands on these recruits, I think.
Well, yeah, I guess just the thing is he's not going to be the guy going to California bringing somebody back in. But the obvious presence is going to be in the room. He is an asset. Everybody's going to know that. I just think it's funny that, some people are thinking he's going to, lose these connections, which he might suffer a little bit there if he ever wants to get back into head coaching. But just the fact that, Perry – not utilizing Perry as a recruiting tool for Iowa while they're bringing him back, it doesn't necessarily equal a negative. He still has value for recruits. And if he wants to be a Division I head coach, I think he's going to be fine. That's just kind of what I wanted to hit with those, just the Penn State fans, man, just kind of funny stuff.
Well, Iowa fans would flip it too. I mean, they've been flipping the Dresser, Metcalf stuff since that all dropped. So, every fan base is going to flip it the way that they want to flip it to make it sound right. But, I mean, Mark Perry is a guy that, whenever there's a Division I coaching job that comes up, literally Perry's name is on almost every single one. People, Perry's going to Pitt. He's
Oklahoma.
going to he's getting almost every job is what everyone, Mark Perry's on the top of everyone's list. But Mark Perry never took the Division I coaching job. Did they not ask him? I don't know those type of details, but he hasn't taken a Division I coaching job because I think he's picky. He told Tom Brands no a couple times. That anyone that's talked to Tom Brands, it's very hard to say no to Tom Brands. You just basically do what Tom Brands says. So Mark Perry isn't going to be a puppet, I guess you could say. So, Mark Perry's going to be Mark Perry, and that's what I think a lot of people are excited about. He's going to have his own opinions. And he's going to make stuff happen just inside that coaching staff.
Yeah, he brings a different perspective. He's not the same grinded out. He's not the same style of wrestling as Tom and Terry. He's different than Morningstar. It's definitely good for a different feel. What was I getting? Oh, so who's coming with him though?
Well, that's now the speculation. Who's coming, right? The first one that you would think is Justin Mejia. Is that a guy that was thinking about coming to Iowa? Iowa wouldn't give him what he wanted financially, I think. So he went to the next best place where he felt like he liked that school, which was Illinois, obviously. They gave him what they wanted, and Mark Perry was there. I think those two things, from what I know, had a big influence. I think money was a big one, and then obviously Mark Perry. I know you're pretty close to the Mejia family. What do you know, I guess?
I know when the news dropped, obviously we put it out. Flow Wrestling put something out. That kind of, if that doesn't give you a signal flag that there's some smoke, that there's something burning, nothing will. So Tom, he has followed our website for a long time. He kind of knew. He reached out, wanted to know what was going on. And I told him, obviously we wouldn't run something unless we thought it had legs, which it obviously did. And, he hasn't really given me everything. He hasn't let me inside all the way to let me know the inner workings of their decision. But I think there was concern about Perry flipping to Iowa. I think they did go to Illinois for Mark Perry. I think, he was the big selling point for them. And I think this kind of leaves them feeling like they might be holding the bag a little bit. But I don't know how he can come to Iowa unless he's going to take a huge hit to academic money. And if Illinois doesn't give him his release right away, he's getting hit with full tuition year one.
Yeah, I think when I go back to money was the number one thing. I think that's going to be the biggest deciding factor. And here's another thing. Will Iowa take him back? Iowa is a place where, from what I know, talking to recruits, is they basically have this plan for you, and the offer's on the table for every guy for a long amount. There's only a few people that basically they offer to and say, "Hey, take your time," right? And I don't know if Iowa would take him back. They'd have to. I would assume that they'd offer him something significantly lower than what they originally did, just on the principle that they don't want to just be known as a school that just says, here, we'll have you back. Hey, you showed your lack of, I guess you could say, commitment, right? Do we want to recommit to you and buy into you? That's a hard thing, I think you say. And where does he fit into that lineup too, right?
Yeah, I mean, he'd have to give up some weight to go to 33. I think. I think Spencer Lee's done nothing but establish himself as future 125 pounder. And I think, based off results, even trying to look at that common match, which isn't always the best outcome to determine, but Spencer wrestled DeSanto to a 1-point match, and DeSanto kind of gave Justin everything, more than he could handle at the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic. So I think Spencer Lee would be that guy at 25, which means you got to push Justin to 33. And right now he doesn't have the size. He definitely would need a red shirt before he's stepping in the lineup at 33. You're asking quite a bit out of a guy that you don't know can grow into 133.
Yeah, I mean, there's talk of maybe him taking the route that Stickley did with the gray shirt. I mean, he needed to put on size. He obviously knows that. So, I mean, is that something he could do? And also, I mean, at the end of the day, Illinois' got to give him the release too. He's committed. He's not signed on the dotted line. I think with a departure of a coach, that's more likely that he would get that release. But what do you think about a gray shirt? Is that something that more kids will start taking advantage of, like Stickley?
Penn State's utilizing it. They had a guy, finish up his high school career online. Nick Lee did it and he was training in the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club. He'll be going in, his true freshman season. He's already had a year inside the Penn State room. That's pretty unique situation. Obviously, it kind of seems like there's this trend where we're trying to game the rules a little bit more. Every college is looking for an edge, and when you got to catch up to Penn State, who's way out in front of the field, these are the type of things you got to look for, and maybe you can, separate Spencer and Justin a little bit, give Justin another year to get bigger if he wanted to flip. So I don't know if the Mejia family would be on board with it, but obviously it worked well for Stickley. He got to work for a year and train, and he enjoyed his experience, and he's really hungry to get back on the mat. So that kind of helps your passion too. When you can't fully commit to what you want to be committed to, you got to work for it. It kind of gives you a little bit better perspective as you get older, I think.
I mean, and I guess we're on Mejia here. There's so many other chips that could fall here with Illinois, right? I mean, obviously the big one, Isaiah Martinez, that timing is pretty much perfect as far as with him. He'd have to graduate, then he could come. It's perfect in the sense that, I mean, you're not going to turn down a 2-time national champ for coming to Iowa, 3-time finalist. But where does he fit in the lineup, right? I mean, they've got a log jam of guys there. I think, Kemmer, I mean, depends on if he's at 65. Can he go to 57? Where does the Bull fit in that lineup? If Isaiah Martinez comes, that's really the guy, right? You've got Sorensen there and Kemmer. Can one of these guys, can Kemmer, Sorensen cut down to 41 to get in the lineup? What are your thoughts on if Imar does come? Where does the lineup? Where do they shake in there?
Ooh, I don't know. Imar seems to be, dedicated to 65 right now. I think I saw something today. I think it was Flo said Imar's going 74 kilos for last chance qualifier. So yeah, that's day before weigh-ins. He seems to be like, if he's going to go at 174, he's going to be a 65 pounder. That's probably going to leave Marinelli out right now. Sorensen's not getting down to 41. I know we've had a lot of talks about that, how that's just not possible. That's daydreaming. I think that's probably the more ridiculous of all the weight class scenarios of cutting. But, and I don't know if Kemmer's going to 49 would be good for him. So I think you would leave out Marinelli, as sad as it would be for Iowa fans. because they really like the potential they see in him.
Yeah, and I just don't think you can say no to a guy like Isaiah Martinez. So it'd be interesting to see how those chips fall. There's other guys out there too that, there's Richards. There's talk about it, maybe him coming. How many people are in the Perry corner, right? We don't know. I mean, everyone talks about how good of a recruiter Mark Perry is. Well, a lot of these guys went there for Mark Perry then. I mean, there's a lot of people that could come to Iowa, and are they going to be a big transfer school now? I mean, there's going to be a lot of talk. That'd be fun if you're an Iowa fan, if you're covering the wrestling in the state of Iowa and across the country. Anyone that flips to Iowa is big news.
Yeah, obviously Jesse Delgado and Zane Richards are the two big names that can come no strings attached, join the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. But then it'd be really interesting because you'd have, Gilman, Delgado, Richards, Clark, and then Chris Dardanes. They're all for sure. They got their weight set in that first two weight classes. And then you got Dan Dennis, Matt McDonough still in the room. Not sure what their competition futures look like if they're sitting this year out. What their future is really just a big mystery. Other than we hear from the Hawkeye Wrestling Club that they still plan on competing. They just don't give you a specific time. So, I mean, that's what I just name off. 7 guys in the first two weights. They still got the other Dardanes, Telford, Burak. I mean, that's a lot of names for the Hawkeye Wrestling Club to be carrying.
Yeah, and I think what's going to happen is as much money as they're probably going to spend on Perry, there's going to have to be some guys that they might have to let go. And that's obviously always tough, right? I don't want to name names who that would be, but, I mean, you could kind of – I mean, there's so many guys out there that we could be going after. RTC, Iowa State could be going after. Iowa could be going – I mean, there's so many of these RTCs that kind of don't really have a home or – their RTC program doesn't have a full-time coach, I guess. And it seems like money's coming out everywhere. So, this RTC stuff is really going to continue to grow. It's great for wrestling. It's great for our postgraduates too. I think not only have a place to wrestle, but now maybe have a future in coaching. So I think it's awesome.
I think, that's going to be the big thing because you have these guys that Perry could be bringing to the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. Obviously, Dresser talked about wanting to bring in people to his RTC, and we haven't seen any movement there. We're still wondering, if guys like Kyvan Gadsden's going to stick around, Earl Hall. We're not, he hasn't really said anything. He's still there, but he hasn't said for sure, that's his long-term plans. And Blaze Cabell just left the Panther Wrestling Club. So it seems like there's a lot of, Iowa, I don't know what they got money-wise, but, there seems like there's some opening at those other two schools. So senior level wrestling in Iowa is, just a really interesting sphere to be in right now.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see who, if they just go after Illinois guys or if they're going to go after people around the country. If they've got more funding, who they're going to go after. Gabe Dean, Nick Wasdowski, I think, has a pretty sweet little deal. I think he does train a little bit out of Pennsylvania, PSU, a couple times. I think they're giving him a little money. I mean, if you went up and down the roster, there's tons of guys that are probably free agents out there that would fit well on that Hawkeye room, which all that helps is your college programs too. So, I was going to look through Illinois' roster here, talking to a couple people. Obviously, Imar, and people have been throwing around Richards a little bit, which I don't know why Richards would leave. He's kind of been the guy. But a name that got thrown out to me is a Izzy-style guy, Dylan Duncan. Dylan Duncan's a freshman, 133 pounds, almost beat Richards. Supposedly he's been beating Richards in the room. So Dylan Duncan could be a possible guy that would need a place to go. And I think obviously Izzy Style has a connection with Mark, has a connection with the Brands brothers. I think he's got a connection all over the country, but I think that relationship is good. So he's gonna need a place to go. So look out for that name. That could be a name that some people might be haven't been looking for. Some people have been throwing after Isaiah White too. I saw that on Hawkeye Report a little bit. That would be somebody that you could maybe gamble on, but somebody you could go after here a little bit. But anything else? I mean, you could probably talk about the what ifs here.
I just got, it was brought up by our own Lars Underbaki. He asked the question, what do you think about bringing Perry on? He's not known for his freestyle, right? So do you think it's the right move for the Hawkeye Wrestling Club, for the freestyle club to bring in a guy that's more known for his folk style accomplishments?
I mean, Terry's there. Terry's still going to be there, right? I mean, I think it's just a matter. Go ahead.
Sorry, I guess I think what Lars might have even brought up is why not, transition Terry to the head Hawkeye Wrestling Club coach and put Perry in Terry's role, if that's easy to follow.
I mean, maybe that's a plan. Maybe they've got something worked out where maybe that's a 2-3 year plan. I don't know. I mean, is Ben Burhow here to stay for a while? Heavyweight coach, is that something where that could be a role that Perry could go into? Burhow could go over to the Hawkeye Wrestling Club. I mean, those guys really don't. I think the Hawkeye Wrestling Club uses a lot of the resources we have at the University of Iowa. So I think it's really just a title, in my opinion. You see McDonough coaching these guys, Telford coaching these guys. So I don't know. I think it's really just a title and a way to get him some more money. So I don't think it hurts. I mean, it makes more sense. It makes more sense on the outside recruiting-wise to have him on staff, right? But does it really matter, I guess?
I think it's funny that, they talk about what has Perry done freestyle coaching-wise, or what's he got. And, when he was out at Cal Poly, he discovers, Boris Novichkov, or however you say his name. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. I think he's Bulgaria, right? That sound right?
Yes.
65 kilo guy.
Novakoch.
Novakoch. Yeah, maybe that's how you say it. I'm not up to snuff on my European pronunciations, but anyway, this guy, he wasn't really well thought of, or he wasn't renowned while he was even at Cal Poly. He becomes an NCAA finalist. He follows Perry to Illinois, and all he did was qualify for the Olympics, and I think he was the 8th place finisher at 65 kilos. And when you think about, Perry, pretty much, he came in and gave that Illinois program a jump start. He's the one that brought Delgado in, that was a multi-champ. He's obviously the one that brought Imar in, multi-champ. And I think, in Andy Hamilton's article today, he said those are the first multi-champs Illinois had since the 50s. So Perry's obviously directly responsible for all of the really big name success at Illinois. We've seen Imar do some really big things on the university level. He torched through that bracket one year. We've seen, I think he was in the finals as a junior. Delgado's in the top 10 at 57 kilos. So it's kind of the talent he's been working with too.
I wanted to read this question here that kind of piqued my interest from Steve Murray about, if this Perry thing has been in the works for a while. I don't know if it has been. I would want to venture to say that when Iowa State got Metcalf, that this really kind of said, and Kevin Dresser's out there going, hey, we're going to raise $1 million in 60 days. I think that really kind of lit a fire underneath the Hawkeye Wrestling Club's rear end that says, holy crap, we need to do something about it. And also, too, maybe not just what Iowa State's doing, but what Penn State's doing. Tom Brands said that after the Big Ten championships that we gotta figure out what Penn State's doing. I can't remember what the interview was. He said something about Penn State, and Brands isn't a guy that recognizes other schools a whole lot. He doesn't pat them on the back a whole lot. All right, well, we're back. we're back with part 2 here. Sorry about that. We probably got too many dang windows open or something right now. I'm not sure. So we just got done talking about Mark Perry and, obviously the hire and what it meant, why we think he'll be a good coach, even though he doesn't have any freestyle experience. And what you didn't talk, we talked literally for 20 minutes, realized that this thing shut off. But we were getting to Iowa USA Wrestling in the state wrestling tournament this past weekend. And what some numbers here for you. I'm been getting some messages about our numbers fell off. Boom, like really bad for cadets, and I kind of want to explain why I think that is. So in 2016, freestyle, 343 entrants for cadets. 2017, 313. So about 30 people dropped off of there. At Greco, we had 270 and 16 to 248 this year. So 22 there. So 52 total at the cadet level in 1 year. It's quite a bit. And at the junior level, in 2016, we had 167. This year was 171. So a little bump there. In Greco, we had 99 last year. This year it was 90. So a little drop in Greco. But Northern Plains is coming up. And have you talked to anybody, Ross, that you think is going to be going to Northern Plains?
I think, the absence of Teskey, Thompson, and Shriver, those guys not showing up at state kind of made me wonder if they're going to go to Northern Plains. I think we saw them compete there last year at that tournament, so that kind of seems to make sense for the biggest names, I think, if you're looking through those results.
Yeah, and I think what I think the plan is, I'm not sure if this is Iowa USA's thought process or if it just happens to be what's happening, but they take the top 3 at the state tournament. Those guys all qualify. The girls, they all qualify. And so some of these top guys aren't competing at the state level. So what I think is happening is Iowa USA Wrestling, we want to try to get as many people at Fargo as possible, right? So if a guy like Teskey competes, he's more than likely going to go win Northern Plains. So he'll qualify that way. So why have him compete at the state level when we can get 3 other guys in so we're not bumping people out? I mean, it makes sense. Sucks for the tournament as far as the state level tournament goes, but it makes sense Fargo-wise to get more people there, more funds, I guess, the more money in the bank by taking a lot more kids and a lot more opportunities for kids to be able to experience Fargo. Does that make sense to you?
Well, I don't know why you wouldn't utilize that. I know the Southeastern Regional, I think it's usually out in Georgia. It's, not the toughest regional, and Iowa still sends kids out there, and we run right through that tournament. Just about all of our guys come home from the finals, and in both styles. Usually they're competing both styles out there. Nelson Brands was double O-dub last year. So I know, those regionals are an easy way to take advantage of qualifying. Northern Plains is usually pretty tough, but we've still seen Iowa perform very well there. Obviously, you got Minnesota, some kids from Illinois coming over, but for the most part, Iowa holds their own at that tournament.
Yeah, what I haven't heard is we heard Teskey, Thompson possibly at the same weight. I haven't heard if it's going to go down Northern Plains or I haven't seen the registered wrestlers yet, but I believe the event is streamed on Track Wrestling, so we might be able to get to see this match go down. What do you know? Have you been talking to any of these guys, or?
I haven't been talking other than just hear from Thompson that he's going to 120 for this, and that seems to be Teskey's best weight. So I gotta assume that's where we'll see him at. That would be. I mean, Track Wrestling is going to have themselves a lot of Iowa fans probably buying the stream just to see that match. That match.
And if this match does happen, I think this is bigger than just that one match. Obviously, you're going to figure out who probably the pound for pound wrestler is in the state of Iowa. Lots of people argue Teskey. Lots of people argue Thompson. Who's a better college wrestler? And it's just so hard. They're two different styles. They're two different styles, and I just want to see it go down. So it is freestyle. I would say last year you give the nod to Thompson, but Teskey made it to the finals. So and he continues to get better. He's a guy like a brawler, I guess. Thompson's more quick, and not that Teskey's not quick, but I just feel like he's a little bit more flashier than the Teskey. So this will have, as far as in-state recruiting, what kind of dollar figures are getting thrown out to Teskey and Thompson from UNI, Iowa State, and Iowa. They're all on them, right? So and I'm pretty sure Iowa's offered Teskey already. So, could his stock go down a little bit if Thompson beats him, or is Iowa still on him? Who you picking?
Who am I picking? Oh man, didn't know that was coming up tonight. I think if it was folk style, I'd take Teskey, but I think I still like Thompson. I don't know. I like Teskey. Teskey's got a little bit of a leg lace. He's kind of developed that a little bit, but I don't know if he's got enough to go toe to toe. I think Thompson can do a little bit more maybe in freestyle.
Well, Thompson is just so fluid. He's always been fluid with his shots and transitioning into that leg lace. And that's what I think why everyone really went up and said Thompson's the guy, right, in Iowa, because of his freestyle success and how he just transitions into wrestling, and Teskey's more of a brawler. So I guess I would lean with you too, kind of. Teskey's, if they wrestled in a folk style match, I think Teskey could maybe shut him down a little bit and slow the pace down and probably be a little bit better on top than Thompson would be. But if they're on their feet, I think Thompson wins that battle. He's just so freaking fluid on his feet. So that's why everyone wants to see this match, because it's just a different style. And there's going to be lots of opinions out there, I guess, but it's all opinions until it actually happens. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
And we'll figure out who our pound for pound guy is. Our Fab 50 is coming out here. Well, I think it's coming out, right? I mean, hopefully Lars is. I'm going to put Lars on. We're going to call him out again, right? You guys called him out last week.
Yeah, he ain't going to come on the podcast. We're going to call him out for everything.
So, yeah, I want to see that match.
I want to see the new Fab 50.
Yeah. Another thing too, that Joel Shapiro was like 195 pounds.
What's that boy eating?
Is that what he wrestled at, right?
He weighed in at like 192, 193, something like that.
My Lord, what's he doing?
I thought it was crazy when I saw him at 82. I thought there's no way this kid's a full 82. He's not cutting a pound, an ounce, a kilo, and here he is, weighing in the 90s for state. Holy smoke! I don't know what he's doing.
I mean, is that just as far as team wise goes? As far as Team Iowa, I mean, so you've got. Well, what did Max Lyon? What did he wrestle at?
82.
Probably pull it up here, but he was probably 82, right?
Yeah, he beat Sherry in the finals.
So you got Sherry and Max at 82, and you put Shapiro in there too. I mean, we've got our top 10 guys right there in the state.
Yeah, and he beat Caleb Reeves, who was a cadet All-American at 95 last year. So not too shabby of a tournament for Joel Shapiro.
Yeah. What do you make of Aiden Reeves? Aiden Reeves coming out and dominating Kyle Biscaglia in freestyle.
That was really impressive. And I thought, obviously we thought both of them were going to be strong contenders at 113 at Fargo this year. So it's a smaller weight for juniors. And I thought Biscaglia, I thought he had some potential to maybe make a run at a Fargo title. But with this performance by Reeves, you got to start wondering if he's going to, enter his name into being a legit, title contender.
He just seems like he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. I like it.
Yeah, well, that's partially Eric and Kirk's fault. I'll call them out too. They didn't even pick him to make the finals. I'm pretty sure that's what the tweet I got today is. Some people didn't even pick him to make the finals. Well, I'm fairly certain that was shot at us.
Yeah. Well, you saw it with at the senior level. Jordan Oliver got called out. Robbie Smith's been called out. And Tony Ramos, to an extent, got called out too. So all those guys won. So in a sense, they use it as, fuel. You don't.
You know who else used some controversy as fuel? Zach Barnes.
Ooh, yeah.
Zach Barnes managed to come out on top over Tristan Lara again in freestyle.
I heard it was kind of a boring match, but
2-1.
Yeah, as far as obviously the score, but there wasn't a whole lot of people making neither of them kind of let it fly, I guess you could say. So I heard it was a boring match, anyways.
I think it was. I think Lara won 6-6 on Criteria and Greco, so it's series 2-1. Zach. I hope they both go to Northern Plains and we get a fourth installment.
I haven't heard from them if they're going to do that or not, but two guys going to be going to the next level always, and they're two good guys too. We obviously had them in the War at West Gym, but well, let's move on here. I guess kind of got offered mojo here from the first seg, but Iowa State picked up Caden Sauer. That happened. That went down. That was big news on our website. I mean, that got more hits than Mark Perry. Mark Perry speculation. Obviously a speculation article, whatever. But people are fired up about Caden Sauer. People are fired up about Iowa State wrestling, something we haven't seen on our site since really we started it. So we're obviously pumped up that people are pumped up about Iowa State wrestling. They should be. I mean, they just got to keep riding this, and they got to get some bigger names.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, really surprising to see the amount of support. I don't really want to bag on Iowa State fans, but there was, if you kind of added up what we had for people coming to the IA Wrestle site prior to, maybe just last year, and compared that to just what Caden Sauer News did, it really tells you how far the needle's moved since Kevin Dresser's come on board. Just kind of comparing that kind of stuff. And it's obviously a really good addition for that. I thought all those 3A 95-pounders, Bartel, Connor Corbin, Jacob Dykes, all four of those guys with Sauer, really good quality prospects. And I can't remember. Do we know what Connor Corbin's doing?
Connor Corbin, there was rumors that he wants to go to school, I think, to be in engineering, chemical engineering maybe, I don't know. Dude is super smart. So I was hearing Brown for a while. Brown was after him, but Brown just released a graphic the other day about their recruits and nothing with his name attached to it. Tried reaching out to him a couple times, and I think everybody's really kind of still on the table for him, but it'll be definitely Ivy League-ish, I would assume. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that's the type of guy that, as far as Division I goes, I think that's going to be at the right school for him. It sounds like academics are going to be pretty important to him. So, don't know how he will do at the next level. I think it all depends on which program he goes to.
100%.
So Iowa State, Kevin Dresser's actually out on a tailgate tour right now. So you can check that stuff out at iawrestle.com. There's a little schedule up there, so you can find Dresser and Zadok. They're going to be out and about. So if you're an Iowa State fan, you can go check that out. You and I, I've been hearing some rumblings of some transfers up there, but nothing real. Not a lot going on besides Twins. The Twins are here. So
Panther training edition.
congratulations to the Schwab family for having an even crazier house now with 2 girls in that place, 3 girls total. But congratulations to the Schwab family. That's pretty cool to see. I mean, you always got to think double trouble, double the risks. So sounds like everybody was healthy and no issues. So that's always good to see. Think they'll wrestle?
Man, if they roughhouse with those boys, I don't see how they don't end up. Man, those 2 are wild.
I love it. And I got a picture of speaking of those boys with the mullets, I got this picture I'm going to put up on Facebook here today. This guy's his little girl's got a mullet, and he's been taking a picture of her mullet and snapping it to me. So I get that up on Facebook here today. Sammy Brooks, the mullet, his T-shirt's sold out. We're kind of going all over the place here, but his T-shirt's freaking sold out like in 3 hours. Did you get yours yet?
I'm getting one tomorrow. Tomorrow, picking it up.
All right.
In Iowa City. Mullet power, man.
So you're going to be going to practice? What are you expecting to see?
Man, people are going to be going hard. Last chance qualifier coming up. Thomas Gilman is the only last chance qualifier I think Iowa's sending. I know for sure Sammy Brooks, Alex Meyer are out. Not 100% sure why, but I just know Gilman's the only one going. I don't know if there's a really big reason behind it, but Gilman should be a big threat to win that bracket, punch his ticket to Lincoln. I don't know if there's a ton of guys out there that could just show up and really give him much of a challenge anyway, but I think they're going to be going hard because they want to get ready for Lincoln and then later universities.
So Gilman got ranked 10th, I think, 9th or 10th in the last rankings I saw from USA Wrestling. And I think people are just assuming that Thomas Gilman's going to have instant success at the senior level. Do you think that, I mean, the last chance qualifiers, there's a big difference between the last chance qualifier and who he's going to be wrestling at Lincoln. Do you think he's ready? I mean, we didn't think Tony Ramos was ready. Does Gilman have a leg up on a guy like Tony Ramos, do you think, as far as background goes for a tournament like this?
Background for a tournament like this or for Lincoln?
For Lincoln.
For Lincoln, man, I think a lot of things went right for Ramos when he made his first world team. I think he got a lot of confidence off making that first world team, just making the finals. I think you could tell he looked a lot better versus Hayeswinkle. As far as Gilman, he's only lost one match to is Tomasello number 4, maybe number 5. He's only lost one match to Tomasello in his career. And obviously, NATO's done pretty good. Gilman's not a small 57 kilo. He's going to be big for the class. Or not small, I guess. I don't know if he'll be huge like Ramos is, but I think he's got some tools to be a top guy. I don't know if he can, knock off the top spot though. That's a lot to ask of him.
Yeah, I don't know, but we keep on doubting the youth of our sport, and they just keep on kind of shutting people up, right? Like, I just haven't seen enough of Thomas Gilman. I think wrestling freestyle. I don't think I've watched. You go to University Nationals?
I think he only went one time after his sophomore year. I don't remember what he placed. He hasn't gone the last 2 years, so maybe he didn't go. But it's been a while. We know Gilman's good on his feet. His takedowns are where his bread and butter are. And obviously, he was pretty close to making the Junior World Finals back in 2014. And so he's got that overseas experience, so he's not completely green, but I don't know. Tony's defense is tough, and Megaludis, was a bit of a thorn for him too, and he's one of the guys that's kind of established themselves near the top. Tyler Graff, still kind of want to see what he can do. He caught a bad draw with Dan Dennis there. Dennis just really got hot last year too, so be interesting to see if Tyler Graff can make a push to the top spot too.
How many people are qualified? Do you know off the top of your head?
They take it's the day. I don't know who won the Dave Schultz.
Megaludis won Schultz, right? No,
he won the Farrell, but he also qualified at USA at the Open. So I don't, but they take the top 7 at the Open. The NCAA champs, so Darian Cruz could go from Lehigh. And then there's probably 9 guys right now qualified, 9 or 10. Seems like the right number.
So, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what the seeding is going to be like. I mean, you could get like a Megaludis Gilman matchup early. I mean, so, or heck, even Ramos, that would be that'd be fire. Or Ramos isn't in the best of 3. My bad.
No, that's all right.
That would be fun though, right?
Everyone's gonna want to see that match. That's kind of what I'm thinking. That if Gilman gets in the right spot where he's, he can maybe take on a Garrett, he can take on a Tomasello. So if he gets the right draw, there's not a reason to think he couldn't go deep at Lincoln. But if he runs, if they seed him against Tyler Graff right off the get go, that's not going to be the easiest match for him. So, you're putting a lot into the draw of the tournament too, I think, for Gilman, since he's so low on the seeding board.
Yeah. Well, one thing I want to start doing here with Potentially Dangerous. We're going to start doing this obviously every single Monday night, hopefully 8:00. We had an issue for some reason tonight where we kicked off. We had about 75, 80 people watching at one point, kicked them all off. So we've got about 30 people watching now. So I appreciate those who came back and watched. Jamie Gray, appreciate the comment. So if you guys got any questions in regards to UNI, Iowa State, or any of the Division II, Division III, those JUCO schools, happy to, if we know what's going on or if we know any kind of insight on it, we're happy to answer them. In regards to two-piece, that's kind of a big topic. But talking about these other schools here, hopefully we'll get some questions. But Division III, Simpson College, they are real close to naming their first full-time assistant in like 10 years. And I think people are going to be kind of shocked by who applied for this job. There's a lot of people that are just graduated. Some people from Iowa State, hint, hint. There's some people from Iowa State that have applied for that job. It is, I would say it's an entry level job. Maybe it's Division III, but it's a full-time paid job. There's some high school coaches in the state of Iowa that I think have applied. There's some club coaches that have applied. So, yeah. It's not TJ Siebold. So
everybody was wondering it. That's what everybody thought.
Siebold just announced that he's going to be starting that club up at Iowa State, which I think is smart on Dresser's part to allow him to come in. I'm not sure how those deals work, but he's got people traveling 2-3 hours to come to up to Mason City from down south here. So why not do it in Ames? You come to Des Moines, then you got to compete with the Viking Wrestling Club, and Pablo's here as well.
What's the deal then with? Is he moving everything, or is he doing still Mason City and Ames? Do you know?
He's going to do both of them, and he's going to be coaching both of them as well. So last I talked to him, like the sessions in Ames were going to be like on Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday. It just kind of depends. It sounds like the schedule in Mason City is going to stay the same, and they're going to kind of move things around to try to make the one in Ames work. But there's tons of towns here around Central Iowa that definitely need this. Everyone can say what they want about Siebold. Everybody has their opinions, obviously, on TJ Siebold. He's too hard on the kids, but at the end of the day, he's producing some of the top talent in Iowa. Or some of these kids have left other clubs to come to his, and they've been able to stick around. So if you buy into that program, I feel like you're going to have some success. But It's definitely it's a hard club from what I've been told. Out in your part of the woods, you got Eastern Iowa Wrestling Club. So, you've had the guys like Happel and Brands in there, but, really Central Iowa, I think they need something like this.
Yeah. DC Elite does good things too.
Yeah, like DC Elite's going to be up. They're up in Cedar Rapids area, right? Yep. And they're out of Co. They've been talking about maybe shaking some things up in Central Iowa too. So I'd love to see Central DC Elite, maybe down a little south a little bit more too. So southwest Iowa would be a real good spot, I think, for DC Elite. You've got the Outlaws down south. They just started a club up. Then Albia down in southeastern Iowa. So there's so many dang clubs. Obviously, you see that at the AAU States tournament. But we got a question from Ludington here, Richard Ludington, about who's coming with Perry to Iowa. We talked about this in another video, so you can go back and look at that. But just as real short answer is, we don't really know exactly who could come, but it could be a lot of people. You could obviously talk Imar, Richards. We brought up a guy named Dylan Duncan could maybe come. As far as the club guys go, pretty sure Delgado's coming. I think that's really a no-brainer. Delgado was in town. That's really something that no one's really been talking about. Obviously, Perry was in town. People saw him at restaurants and whatnot. But Jesse Delgado has been in Iowa City, and I'm pretty certain that he'll be wrestling at the Hawkeye Wrestling Club here soon. So
yeah, the biggest thing with Imar will be that graduating, and if he can do the grad transfer, because he can't transfer without it, because he can't go Big Ten to Big Ten school. So, I mean, the first step for Imar is to graduate. And once he does that, I mean, maybe that can that might tip his hand what he's going to do if he graduates, because I don't even know if he graduates this spring. I don't know if he's got to take a couple more credits this summer to graduate, but I think that's what you got to look at.
If Perry's really was the first chip to get here, and then after that, some other things could fall in the line for the University of Iowa to get people not only on the club level, but at the college level too. So it could be a lot of people. What was kind of brought up, Richard, is that Perry's been the one that has been recruiting a lot of these guys, or at least on the outside looking in, he's the one going out and getting these guys, turning these guys into national champs. So how faithful are they? Are they willing to lose a year of eligibility, or will they all be granted a release because they did come to school for Perry? So that will be, some damage control for Heffernan to handle at Illinois now that Perry is gone. So that will be it is going to be a fun 30, 60 days, I think. And Mark Perry is going to be at the Hawkeye Wrestling Banquet this Friday. Ross and I are going. And we're going to hopefully maybe pick his brain a little bit on that. So if you come back on Potentially Dangerous next week, we should have a lot of nuggets for you. There's going to be a lot of important people at the Hawkeye Wrestling Club on Friday. So we'll definitely get to talk to Mark a little bit about that. So another question come up is Perry a better hire than if they would have kept Metcalf? I think as far as recruiting-wise goes, maybe. I think Perry has more connections across the country as far as just this how he interacts with athletes. Now, on the freestyle side of things, Metcalf's definitely got him beat easily as far as accolades go. So, I mean, that's a tough one there, I guess. But when you think about, like, Division I wrestling, Ross, like, people are saying, well, Mark Perry should be a head coach everywhere, right? Everybody wants Mark Perry, and not everybody was saying everybody wants Brett Metcalf. So if you're just looking by what the whole country is saying, Mark Perry would be the hire that you would want. But did Hawkeye Wrestling Club not want Brett Metcalf? I don't think that's true. I think they just didn't have the money. They didn't have the donors in place to make that happen. So I think if they look back, they should have been able to make a way to keep Brett Metcalf on staff. Brett Metcalf's always been a Hawkeye. I think deep down still he's a Hawkeye. What are your thoughts on that, Ross?
I mean, technician-wise, I think you're losing something in terms of talent. I mean, Iowa State's getting a huge asset, but you got to also look at about, what kind of asset is it? And when you look at the Brands brothers and you look at Metcalf, you see a lot of overlap in the styles. And you look at the Brands brothers and you look at Mark Perry, there's better value for a coaching, for a different feel. You look at the Brands brothers size, you look at Metcalf's size, same thing. And Perry's obviously going to be able to work with those bigger guys. So, I mean, if you want to talk about straight experience on the world level, in terms of technique, there's a reason USA Wrestling hired Brent Metcalf to be the developmental coach. But if you want to talk about what's better for the program, Mark Perry might be that answer. He's got different things to the table. And sometimes change is good to get a little bit of a reboot and just, get some different feels and different names.
Another question that Chad is bringing up here is Justin Mejia, Willie Flip. We brought this, we covered this, but I'm glad you're turning in here. We went into pretty good depth about Justin Mejia. And I think consensus was, Ross, I guess, I feel like it's been an hour ago or so, but I think the consensus was that more than likely Mejia will not flip back unless he comes for a very small amount of scholarship dollars. It's possible he could probably get a release and come back, but dollars-wise, we don't think Iowa is going to offer them what the kind of deal he had. So,
100%. Yep. I don't think I can disagree with that.
Another thing that we brought up too is, would Iowa open arms to him back after decommitting? That hurts a program when you have a kid decommit. Not everyone knows why a kid decommits, right? No one knows if it's money or, if they're mad because they went out and got Spencer Lee and Gavin Teasdale. No one knows those type of issues, but it's bad for a program when a kid decommits. Horrible.
Yeah, and you only get one side of the story from the recruit because coach can't talk about it. Just losing a kid is usually a net loss for a program because coaches can't have a response.
It's just so tough with these kids signing so early too, that unless they're signed on the dotted line, you really can't stop recruiting at that weight class, right?
Right. I don't know why you would ever plan on a kid that's a sophomore, definitely a freshman. And now it's crazy that even juniors, you really can't count on to be there in 13 months.
Another question we got from Todd Fye. Can Perry not recruit since he is a club coach? I know it is one of those gray areas.
He can't go on the road.
From what?
He can't go on the road.
From what he can't. He basically, the University of Iowa can't pay him to go out and recruit. He can't represent the University of Iowa on the road, right?
Right.
But he can make phone calls, couldn't he? I don't know how that works. Well, volunteer assistants can make phone calls.
Yes.
Even though they're not paid, I guess. So, I don't know those rules. There's always a gray area in everything, I think, in college athletics. I mean, there's things that schools are getting away with right now. When they sign a kid and basically promise them a summer job in camps throughout the summer, say, hey, you come here, I'm going to make this amount of money on my camp, and I'm going to give you 20 grand or 30 grand of that as you be a technician from being a national champ. That's huge money. So there's is that since it's a job, it's not outside the lines, but it's kind of gray.
And the thing is Perry is in the room. He's got that tie. So the same thing could be said if somebody calls and says, "Hey, we want Mark Perry." Holy smokes, we want Mark Perry to come do a camp for us. And he shows up wearing a Hawkeye Wrestling Club shirt and he's showing technique. people are going to make that connection. It's not against the rules. I wouldn't think it to show up in your club attire. So,
well, no, I mean, Cale Sanderson, Jay Robinson, Tom Brands, they have these summer camps. If they don't actively say, hey, we want you to come to our camp or invite them to come to camp, they cannot stop the kids from coming. Right? They can't stop the kids from doing an unofficial visit. Those coaches they can do the one-on-one coaching. So there's nothing stopping them. So there's ways, I think, a way to make that happen. It'll be interesting to see. There's obviously a reason why they're bringing him on. Everyone says, well, it'd be better to have him on staff so we can actively recruit. There's got to be ways that they think that there's going to be a benefit there. Otherwise, Tom wouldn't consistently try to go after him for that. Here's kind of a point, too, that a lot of people have been bringing up, Ross, is there's a lot of alpha males in one stable. Will they be able to coexist? I mean, there's alpha males in there with just Tom and Terry. So you add these guys and Perry in there as well. I mean, the way I look at it, Ross, I don't know what your opinion is, obviously, but I think that Perry is a different mindset than Tom or Terry, Ryan, these guys, a different mindset than those guys. And I think it's going to be a good balance. I think they're going to be good for business side of things, the Hawkeye Wrestling Club, recruiting wise, social media, dealing with media. I think this is going to be, they're obviously going to butt heads, and Mark Perry has not backed down from Tom Brands like a lot of people do. So I think he is going to step up and say his piece. But I think it's going to work. At the end of the day, since it is the Hawkeye Wrestling Club, I think they can sever ties if there's issues.
Yeah, and if you think about it, listen to Terry. And I know he had an interview with Trackcast or whatever the Track podcast is called, and I think he even talked about he kind of likes being in that role behind his brother. He knows that at the end of the day it's Tom's decision. So there's a little bit of knowing that, and you already brought it up. Tom's gone after Mark Perry 3 times. Mark's 32 years old now. I think he's grown. He's mature enough to know where his place is, and he's probably not the same kid he was when Tom took over the program, and maybe they did have a little bit of that friction. I don't think he comes back if he thinks that if he thinks there's going to be all this conflict and he's never going to get his way. There just seems like these guys are grown adults. I know they're alpha males, but at the end of the day, who's in charge. So
yeah, they're going to butt heads.
You're not coming there and just going to leave the first time you get mad, and you're not going there not having a little bit of understanding that the program's going to be run this way, and I'm going to have my input, and sometimes it's going to be worth more, sometimes it might not be. I think you just kind of know that. So, and apparently, Mark hasn't been happy with the way things have been going at Illinois. So there had to have been that conversation that said, hey, I know you're not happy in Illinois, and had that conversation of why aren't you not happy? I guarantee Tom Brands and those guys said, okay, well, why aren't you happy? Make sure that doesn't happen again, because they don't want to lose him after this big investment to get him. So we got any other questions or anything? Hit us up on the comment section. Ross, you got anything else for us? No, we talked a lot of Mark Perry today.
Yeah, it's a big,
which is good. It's huge.
Yeah, it's a big deal, and we're going to get more of it. Again, come back next week, 8:00, Facebook.com/IAWrestle, 8:00. We'll also have it up on our website. Obviously, something new here. Get the fans involved a little bit more. And if you want to next week, you got questions leading up, usually try to post the event early that day so you can leave your comments in the same way you did here. Put your comments in the section below, and we'll try to get to that, during the show, after the show, in this kind of a Q&A format. So for Ross Barczyk, I'm Tony Hager. This has been IA Wrestle's Potentially Dangerous podcast. Thanks for listening.